All right, we're gonna try something new tonight. Our first ever little. I'm just calling it roundtable discussion. Usually I do these Q&As on Mondays and Thursdays. I wanted to try to get some fans involved. I got my longtime buddy Freddie Huth with us. Um, he's been writing about Clemson on and off for the past few years. Kelly Stone down at the bottom. John Chancey, he's over at Rubbing the Rock. Does a lot of good stuff over there. Check him out. So I can't guarantee you that this isn't going to be a train wreck. I've never done one of these before. I just ask that you bear with me and we'll muddle on through. If you got any questions, you can drop them in the comments. I'm supposed to see them. That don't mean I will. I'm supposed to. We'll see how it works. But we're gonna kick this thing off with realignment talk. That's the big subject over the past week. Chancey did an excellent piece over at Rubbing the Rock the other day, talking about how Clemson would probably end up in the SEC, but was a better fit for the Big Ten. I thought it had a lot of interesting points because I kind of agree with that sentiment. But Chancey, tell us why you think Clemson's more of a fit for the Big Ten.
Well, as far as the culture goes, it seems to be a better match for the Big Ten. I looked into culture a little bit earlier in the year. Before I was working for Rubbing the Rock, I was writing for the seldomusedreserve.com website, and I was mostly curious about Clemson's culture. I wanted to know how strong it really was. Was it exactly what a lot of people perceived it to be? And it certainly was very family oriented, but also a lot of keywords were loyalty and integrity. When I looked at some of the Southeastern Conference, cultures, just sampled a few. Georgia, Alabama, and LSU were the best that I got feedback on. They were very generic. It was all about winning and excellence, and very few. The cultures just weren't very deep. When you looked at the Big Ten, I was very surprised at how much words like integrity, education, innovation came up, and family was tied in there too. And so, just culturally, I just kind of feel. I mean, as a conference, the Big Ten is probably a lot closer to the ACC than the SEC is. It's a lot of travel, and it certainly looks like the Big Ten is looking to become a national conference. So it's going to mean very few away games Clemson fans can go to. So in certain regards, not the best fit. But as far as fitting in with the other schools, I just think they're going to fit in a lot better with Big Ten than they will in the SEC.
I think you make a lot of excellent points there. I'm trying to talk with my mic muted. Excellent points. I agree with everything you just said. What about you, Freddie? How you feel?
I agree with him, but I'm also going to stick with him on also the part he said at the beginning that he thinks that we'll probably end up in the SEC. Those are some great points. The thing that trips me out is all the rumors that are going around right now, and it's going to be interesting to see which one ends up being closer to truth than the others. So.
Did it again. How about you, Kelly? Where would you like to see Clemson end up, or what do you see as their best fit, or however you want to frame it?
I would have to agree with Mr. Chancey. I agree that the Big Ten is definitely more in line with what Clemson values as far as academics and athletics. Academics are not necessarily a second focus at Clemson all the time, whereas in the SEC, that's pretty much a minor league system for football as it stands. Academics take a backseat to just about everything. And if you really look at the conference mantra, and compare the Big Ten to the ACC, there's a lot of similarities between the focus of the conference. Whereas Mr. Chansey touched on the SEC was pretty much, we want to win, we value winning, and if we learn something along the way, well, that's all right too. But we just want to win. So Big Ten, I think if the current situation shakes out the way it looks like it's going to, with either 2 or 3 super conferences or either one gigantic 60, 75 team conference, the Big Ten would be a better fit than the SEC.
All right, I'm gonna bring Robbie on here with us. Robbie was wanted to jump in with us. He's a few minutes late getting on, but that's okay.
Like, I mean, it's a good little ways out. I was like, I'm not going to spend. So to
All right. Well, wait a minute, Dad, Robbie. Anyways.
All right, here's a question that I've got. Does it benefit more to have 2 super conferences or 3 or 2 mega conferences, 2 or 3 mega conferences? That's a question I've got.
I don't think you're gonna have 3. I think these 2 leagues have made their moves. I think the ACC's in trouble. I think you could add Notre Dame and whoever else you want to add to the ACC, and it still wouldn't matter. The revenue gap, it would help. It would help. Make no mistake, it would help. It would close the gap, but it would not even the gap. It wouldn't come close to evening the gap. I mean, you would need, being very simplistic about it. I tried to explain this the other day, and I didn't do a very good job. But you need a team to be worth $32 million a year in media rights. Kind of this is being a very simplistic view. Just to bring in $1 million for 16 teams in a 16-team conference, if that makes sense. I mean, how many teams are like that out there outside of Notre Dame? I know people like to talk about West Virginia. That ain't going to get it done. Teams like Cincinnati, that ain't going to get it done. They don't move the needle. I mean, I know you expand up there into Ohio and that television footprint, but they don't bring a lot brand-wise. And I just don't see any way, shape, or form that it ends up with more than 2. In fact, I think in the end, looking further down the road, it's probably going to be just 1. But I think that's a little further down the road. I think this is going to end up entailing football going off and doing its own thing. Players getting paid. Something like a union being formed, similar to the Players Association in the NFL. I think that's the direction we're headed. And I know people don't like it, but nothing stays the same forever. I mean, I'm not a big fan of it myself. I love college football the way it is right now, especially the regional rivalries. What we're talking about is a whole different thing. And my only suggestion is that some people out there, you got to try to stop looking at the future's landscape through the eyes of today's landscape, because it's not going to be anything remotely similar to what we have today. And touching on what we were talking about a minute ago, I'm all in on Chancey's story about the better fit in the Big Ten. And I'll be quite honest with you. I've kind of been programmed to hate the SEC and everything it stands for. I mean, that's me.
Yeah, I agree. Same here, JP.
Same here.
I kind of been programmed that way, from the first time I heard SEC speed, really. I mean, you mean the SEC's the only league that can have fast players? I don't know.
I think they use SEC speed, but they forget that teams like Clemson, Florida State also exist down here in the Southeast. And what they're really just meaning is Southern speed, but they just tie it to the SEC.
When it comes right down to it, I'll be honest. I don't care where they end up, as long as they don't get left out. And I honestly don't think they're going to.
Well, I completely agree. I to be selfish, I've told people a few times that, I love college football, but I mostly care about making sure my team is going to have a seat at the table. And I think that's, the real question at this point is, what is the next step? The SEC and the Big Ten both now have 16 teams when these new teams come in. And so the question is, what motivates them to want to expand more, because I think a lot of people jump to the conclusion that it's automatic. They're going to want to keep growing and growing and growing. And the reality is they're only going to want to add teams if they add value. And what the teams do on the field, believe it or not, is like the third or fourth, bullet point on what the value of a program is. And along the lines of what Jason was saying a minute ago, I think there's only one, can't miss hot one out there, and it's Notre Dame. And Clemson fans can get upset with me for saying Clemson's not a hot one on that league. They're not on the same level. I mean, when I look at Texas and Oklahoma, Oklahoma's a good program.
What's going on? What's coming up? He always posts updates on like.
And when it comes to USC, UCLA's got a fan base, but football drives the is the driver, and USC's the star. Oklahoma and UCLA are the teams that got to go to the party with the hot ones. And I think the next one's going to be Notre Dame. And the question is going to be if the leagues want to add two at a time, who's going to go along with Notre Dame? Who's the next team in the next move? And I think Clemson's got a strong case to be that team. I think there are some others out there too. So the whole question becomes, is it sooner or is it later? And if it's later, we could be talking a few years down the line. If the grant of rights is really that big of a problem that they can't work out an arrangement or take it to court, it could be another, I'm going to say upwards of 5 years before Clemson makes a move. And if it takes that long, who knows what happens in between.
Yeah, I could definitely see it playing out that way, being a few more years. No doubt about it. I could see this thing becoming a legal battle. I get asked all the time, where is this thing leading? And I'll be honest with you, I have no idea. I can't tell you where this thing's leading, man. That's going to be left up to people, higher pay grades than myself. But
it's hard to know what they really care about.
Exactly, and I'm on point with you. Clemson fans don't like it, but they're not on the same level when it comes to Notre Dame. Clemson's got a much smaller alumni base, if I'm not mistaken. You can talk, their IPTATE or booster group doesn't bring in the kind of funds that I would
about
imagine.
18,000.
I would imagine Notre Dame's booster group kind of brings in a lot more money than what Clemson's does, and Clemson's does a fantastic job with what they have to work with. Don't make no mistake, but I mean it's kind of apples and oranges comparison is what I'm trying to say from a brand standpoint, and what Clemson brings to the table compared to Notre Dame. John did a much better job at explaining that.
Well, and something else I was going to mention I looked up one time is comparing the ACC to the Big Ten. A lot of people question, how is the Big Ten able to bring all of this value? And you don't really realize it until you talk about what you mentioned just a minute ago, Jason. It's the size of the school, the size of the alumni base. If you were to take all of the schools in the Big Ten and rank them as far as enrollment, top to bottom, and then you took the ACC. Last time I checked, which was sometime last year, a lot of people don't know this. The biggest school in the ACC is Syracuse. They would be the 9th biggest school in the Big Ten. If you put them in the Big Ten today, they would be the 9th biggest school. And that's a huge difference. And that's why they have so much money coming into these programs, and why the cable company, their cable channel gets so many viewers. They just have enormous alumni bases.
And Clemson has a fairly small one.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's something they can't help. That's just the way it is.
All right, I have one quick question. Are we for sure Notre Dame is going to capitulate and actually join a conference? Or do they think that their brand is strong enough because they're better at faith than they are at football? Let's just be honest with that. Notre Dame goes. But do they join a conference or do they stand pat?
I think they're going to have to. I think the next playoff, when expansion comes, I think it's going to be catered to these two big leagues. And if you're not in it, you're probably going to be on the outside looking in. We'll see if they bend over backwards from Notre Dame. But those days of bending over backwards, if they're not over, they're not. I don't think they're going to be going on for too much longer.
I agree with that.
What you think?
At some point in time, they're going to have to.
Well, you think Notre Dame's going to be forced to join, Chance?
Forced is a strong word. I mean, it's all going to come down to the playoff. I've said for several years now, there was only really one thing that was going to motivate not just Notre Dame, but their fan base to support joining a conference, and that's when they think they're getting shut out of being able to win a national title, because that's the only, except for that 1 year in the ACC, that was the only championship they can play for is a national title, and that they take pride in that. But the second they feel that they can't actually get there, I think that's when the fan base will support it, and that's when Notre Dame will join. But I think, you're talking about people bending over backwards for Notre Dame. I think Swarbrick's going to be the most popular date for the prom for the next couple of years. He's going to have a lot of people calling him, saying, "Hey, how you doing? Let's talk." You know?
His phone line's going to be busy. That's kind of what I meant by force. Kind of force their hand, tell them, "Hey, the only way you're getting into playoffs to join." That's kind of what I was getting at. But Fair, you got anything to add?
Well, I'm just looking at it and thinking to myself, I could see as much as we were talking earlier about us being a better fit, or Clemson being a better fit in the Big Ten. I could see Notre Dame being a better fit for them geographically wise, whereas for Clemson it would be an SEC. You know what I'm saying? A better geographically. How am I trying to say that? We would fit in better geographically with the SEC, where Notre Dame would fit in better with the Big Ten. But now I still think it's gonna come down to who makes the next move, and that's gonna be a big thing there.
That you touched on something there that's kind of funny to me is, and JP did earlier about regional rivalries, and geography is kind of thrown out the window now. It doesn't really make any sense for USC to travel all the way to Rutgers to play football or any other sport on a Friday or Saturday. Like geography and travel, that's completely changed.
How about volleyball on a Thursday?
Yeah. I mean, come on. Any sport you want to throw at it, that's a hard travel, and it's harder on the students than I think people are going to realize. One other thing, I think ESPN holds a lot of power, and they're not really talked about as much as the conferences are. And the conferences do hold a lot of the cards, but ESPN is where the money's at. So there's going to be a lot of talks behind the scenes between those conference directors, ADs, and the big wigs at ESPN, trying to figure out how they can milk this cow for as much as they can.
Make no mistake, Fox plays some big role in this thing too when it comes to the Big Ten side of things. They pulling some strings too. But yeah, the television networks are definitely pulling some strings here, no doubt about it.
All right, speaking of ESPN, I'm gonna throw something out there, and I just want to know if anybody else in this group agrees with Reese Davis's comments that North Carolina is the big ticket, and even more so than Clemson would be for these conferences. Anybody agree with that in here?
I don't know if I agree, but I see his point. Because that's one of the questions about the Big Ten specifically. Because the Southeastern Conference, they've got teams all over the Southeast. The Big Ten's now got their core Midwest group. They've got teams in the East. They got teams in the West. They don't have any teams in the most fertile recruiting ground in the country, which is the Southeast. And so, if they're not thinking small, the way we were talking earlier, like maybe Notre Dame and one other team, if they're thinking, okay, let's make a land grab in the Southeast, maybe go after, say, as many as 4 different schools, then, some other schools that a lot of fans probably don't think about are on the table. And North Carolina is one of them. We haven't mentioned yet that the Big Ten has this fascination with AAU membership. And they have always, every team that has ever applied and been accepted to the conference has had membership. Nebraska had it right up until the moment they were about to join, and then they got yanked. Notre Dame doesn't have it, so this may be something they set aside. But there are 5 schools in the ACC that have AAU, and 4 of them are in the Southeast. North Carolina is one, Duke is another, Virginia. And I tell you what, if they're going after recruiting ground, write this down. The first school that's going to get a call is the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. All right, they're in Atlanta, they're in Georgia. They're gonna if they're making a grab for like 4 teams, I guarantee you Georgia Tech is going to be one of the 4.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I see Reese Davis's point about the Tar Heels too. I'm like you. I might not necessarily agree, but I see where he's coming from, no doubt about it. Especially if you start looking at some of the other sports too. If you go outside of just football, I kind of see where he's coming from.
Okay.
Yeah, they got to make it work with the money though too, because it's one of those. It's like you or somebody else was saying, JP. When you add teams, if you add 2 teams to 16, then the pie cut 18 ways has to be larger than the pie cut 16 ways. And so
There you go. That's what
I don't know. Georgia Tech and North Carolina are good recruiting areas. Are they gonna? And Duke too. Virginia's got the Tidewater and is close to DC. But
Yeah,
are they?
DMV is rich in talent.
Value? So.
Yeah, those are all good questions. I wish I had the answers to them.
Yeah, I don't either. I'm good at coming up with questions.
They are fun. They're fun to talk about, but I'm like, yeah, I wish I knew the answers.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next thing. We're not far away from ACC Media Days. We're into July now. That comes up later this month. And after that, we get rolling into fall camp. And after last season, Clemson needs a big bounce back year on the offensive side of the ball. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. So with that in mind, looking ahead to the coming season, and I'll start with you, Freddie. What's your biggest concern for this team, looking ahead to the upcoming season?
My concern is how well our quarterback can bounce back. He's going to need to bounce back to give this team a good chance at that comeback season. And I say that in that I don't feel like Klubnik is ready or will be ready, when we start the season off. I think DJ's going to have to carry that part to give him time to get his legs and grow some more. So I do feel like he's going to have to have a good bounce back year, and that in itself is what I'm looking forward to seeing, I guess you could say, and concerned about.
Kelly?
My biggest concern would be to see how much our wide receiver play, both catching the ball, drop rate, and how well they block. A lot of Clemson's running scheme is based on that outside edge and how well those wide receivers can hold the block. I think Sharon Peak in my head, my mind's eye, when I see him driving people 30 yards down the field. So if we can have better wide receiver play, I think that will go to Freddie's point to help out DJU and help him ease into a better year than he started with last year.
Chancey?
I'll throw it into the coaching booth. I think the most important thing on the offensive side is how Streeter and Richardson put together our offensive scheme and how they build it to fit this squad. I think that's one of the things I always admired about Elliott and Scott. They were very good at customizing the offense to fit the parts that they had on the field. And I made mention of this not too long ago. That the best offensive production we got last year was when we had enough guys back from injury on the offensive line, and we had Shipley and we had Pace, and we were putting the ball in their hands, and we were throwing it fewer than 20 times a game. And when we did that, we had very good offensive production. So obviously injuries are a concern, but I think we need one of the biggest things is Streeter and Richardson understanding and working with the parts that they have. I have a feeling they want to try to renovate the passing attack. My concern would simply be whether they have the personnel to get that done. And I'm hoping that they stick to what worked last year, because it's basically the same offense coming back. And we were at our best when we put the ball in the running back's hands.
Yeah, I'm with you right there. You got to stay healthy first and foremost. I don't think I've ever seen a team suffer injuries on one side of the ball the way Clemson did last season. It was mind blowing, and it started early and it continued throughout all the way through to the end of the season. I forget the number of players they were missing in the bowl game, 30-something maybe. I can't, 20-something, whatever it was.
Yeah.
It was something. It was an eye-popping number,
Yeah.
Anyways, looking ahead to next season, I would say, to me, my biggest thing is I want to see more the explosive plays return to this offense. And that goes back to what Chancey was just touching on, the new coaching staff. It goes back to what Freddie was touching on, improved quarterback play. And to me, it also goes back to what Kelly touched on with the receivers, because I thought Clemson got lackluster play from the receivers last year, even before the injuries started settling in. I didn't think the Clemson receivers have generally been known for taking a lot of pride in their perimeter blocking and stuff. I didn't see that last year. And I think it was I'm not saying that guys weren't giving it their all or not bought in or any. I think it was a lot of things that factored into that. No one thing bigger than the other. But I think it's got to be better this year. You got to have better quarterback play. Got to have better play on the outside at the receiver spots. Got to have better play up front. Definitely got to stay healthy. And all that with a new offensive coordinator and a rookie passing game coordinator. So it should be fun to watch at the very least.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes, sir.
Talking about the quarterbacks, a lot of people just, have already had Cade Klubnik penciled in as the starting quarterback.
Yeah.
I think that's short-sighted. I think that's a easy – matter of fact, I think that's a lazy take. We all saw in 2020 that DJ Uyunglele, he's got talent. It's just a matter of him being able to put it all together like everybody else. He's got to stay healthy. I think there's a ways to go before we start penciling in Cade Klubnik as the starting quarterback. Let me frame it like this. I'm not asking you who's going to be the starting quarterback game one. Who's going to be the starting quarterback final game of the season? Freddie?
Yeah, you go first, Freddie.
In a perfect world, DJ will be for me, because that means that he's gotten things together. And I think, like I said, I don't feel like Cade. I think Cade still needs time to grow some more. Okay. I'm not saying that he won't get some plays in there, but I'm hoping that DJ is at the end of the year, because that means that, I feel like we have a better shot.
Kelly?
I think Cade Klubnik ends up finishing the year as our starting quarterback. And I'm a bigger fan of DJU than most of my Clemson friends that I have around. They were ready to throw him away midway through the Georgia game. I think, like you said, I think that's a lazy take to just go with the 5-star shiny new toy, and we're just going to put him in, and everything's just going to be back to the way it was when we had Trevor Lawrence. That's not the way things work. He is a young kid. He's got to come in and learn, and like Freddie said, he's got to grow. He came in at about $180. He has put on some good weight, and he looks more ready to take the position on from a physical standpoint. However, judging Dabo on his past track record, we won't see Cade play major time until midway through the year.
Yeah, I saw Klubnik first part of June 1st, June 2nd. I was out there at Dabo Swinney's high school camps. You can tell he's been in the weight room. He looks really good. I'm not sure exactly how much weight he's put on, but he's added a little bit of bulk, no doubt about it. I would guess he's probably inching closer up to 200 pounds. And if I don't know whether he's going to be the quarterback at the end of the season or not. And this is kind of a easy way out of the question I asked y'all. It wouldn't surprise me if he was. But I must say that DJ holds on to the job all season. I think he is going to benefit tremendously from actually having somebody behind him that can push him. Didn't really have that last year. There was never, ever really any threat of Tyson Pumajan taking that job and keeping it. One thing, he was coming off of a torn Achilles. Second thing, he's not that guy. He was not the most talented quarterback on the roster. And I don't think he was the better option at any point last season, even with a banged-up DJ. And I think DJ was far more banged up than the staff let on.
Agree.
I'm kind of anxious to see him in fall camp. Hopefully that knee's 100% healed because he was still sporting that brace in the spring. Hopefully that thing's healed up. But I thought he looked a lot better in the spring. I've touched on that a few times here. But we'll see. Klubnik's going to have opportunities. There's going to be packages for him. And if Uyunglele struggles and he's not getting it done, I don't think the staff will hesitate to make a change. I'm not of that. I don't believe in that line of thinking. I think Dabo Swinney's proved time and again that under the right scenario, he's not afraid to make the change. I don't think he'll be sacrificing wins and losses with this kind of team when there's another option on the bench. And again, I go back. I know people think there was another option last year. I don't agree with that necessarily, but I just don't think this coaching staff's going to sacrifice wins and losses over blind loyalty to any one player, no matter who it is. Now, having said all that, to me, the biggest question is, you touched on his weight. Is Klubnik going to be developed to the point that he can survive the week-to-week beating that he's going to take? Because, still a freshman, still got some growing to do. We saw it with Deshaun Watson. He took some beatings in his freshman year. I'm not even talking about the ACL injury. He had some other little nagging things that caused him to come out and miss parts of games. That's the kind of things I'm talking about. But we'll see how it plays out. I will say this. I expect to see a different DJ this year. I might be wrong. Wouldn't be the first time. Definitely won't be the last. But I think we're going to see a different DJ Uyunglele this year.
I know, honey. That's they've always had three.
I think
bad luck adding people.
I think that DJ last year, like you said, especially towards the end of the season, he was really banged up, and but I think just generally something was off last year. I've read a lot of rumors. I've seen people speak as to what was, what they saw last summer going into fall. Something. I buy into the fact that there was something was wrong last year that was behind the scenes that was none of our business, but probably impacting him. So I'm giving DJ the benefit of the doubt. I think the one place that could get him, that could cause him to lose his job is accuracy. Like you said, I think all you guys said, Klubnik is going to get his opportunities. I think it's going to be a lot like when DW was coming in place of Stout, and when Trevor Lawrence was coming in, the third or fourth drive of the game, they'd come in. I think Klubnik's going to get that opportunity, and as long as he proves he can hold up physically, I think he has an opportunity to grab the job if he can prove to be accurate where DJ can't be accurate. If he hasn't solved that problem, even if the offense doesn't move incredibly better, if Klubnik's a more accurate option, I think he could grab the job, like Kelly was saying, around mid-year maybe.
I could definitely see it playing out that way, no doubt about it. I would not rule it out.
Just to throw something else in there, other than his physical issues, which are well documented, and John just touched on it, we did know something was going on in the head last year with him. Outside of football and football, I think both was a combination. We're going to see how well he can bounce back. He looks like a different person coming into the year. He's got a better, just a better overall look about him coming into the year. Not just losing the weight, but he looks happy.
He looks happier. I was thinking the exact same thing. He looks happy.
He looks more happy. He looks ready. Whereas last year, first year being the guy, I think he felt the pressure. And then those 7 or 8 sacks versus Georgia to start the year, they didn't help things throughout the rest of the year either. So we'll see how well his mental game is as well as his physical.
All right. So with all that being said, Freddie, expectations for the upcoming season. What kind of rebound do you see for the Tigers this year?
All right. I don't see us having the same problems we had on offense last year. I do believe that the offense will do better with the defense we've got. Heck, it doesn't have to be much better. They're going to keep you in the game no matter what, from the way it's playing out to this point. If we can stay healthy and get a little bit better play from the offense, I see us back in the playoffs. I expect us to have a challenge from North Carolina State, of course, but I do believe we can get past them and we can get ourselves back into the playoffs. Those are my expectations.
Kelly,
I mean, Dabo sets a high standard. That's just the standard. So I think the expectation is to make the playoff again. With the defense, that front 7 that we've got is probably the best. You can't argue it's not top 5, but as someone who wears orange-colored glasses, it's the best front 7 in college football. And like Mr. Goose said, that'll keep us in every game. So if we don't make the playoffs, it's not a successful year in my opinion.
Chancey.
I've logicked my way into believing that Clemson can win every single game they play this year. But then when I take a step back, I also don't know, with all the questions on offense and the changes in the coaching staff, I just also can't see them going undefeated. So I tend to think 11-1. I think an improvement over last year, both because the defense is that good, and I think the offense will learn from mistakes from last year. So 11-1, 10-2. The games that still concern me, of course, is that NC State game where we're hosting them. They have a lot of starters back on defense themselves. Miami's a big question mark. We really don't know what to expect. I have a hard time taking them seriously until I see them good, but I've also seen their quarterback, Tyler Van Dyke, play very well. And one concern I have for Tigers this year is what happens if they get behind early and they have to abandon the run game. That's a concern. And then when it comes to Notre Dame, it's at Notre Dame. I have no idea what kind of play they're going to get from their quarterback because they're pretty much unknowns. If you listen to some of our Notre Dame friends out there, they're all good and they're all going to be contending. They're going to have 3 different contenders for the Heisman next year. But I can't take the Irish lightly either. So among those 3 games, I tend to think we're going to drop one of them, maybe 2. I don't know. But I think, of course, if we lose to NC State, then they're going to be in the driver's seat in the division. But I tend to think we get that one. I think both defenses are going to cause it to be a low-scoring game, and that means Clemson's going to have the advantage with their run game ability. And I think we're going to win the division. I think we're going to be in the conference championship, and then it's one game from there. And I think we win the ACC title, and we'll have to see how everybody else and all the other conferences do to see if we're in contention for a playoff, because we're going to face the same problem we have for the last 4 years. Everybody's going to diss our schedule because the ACC is not that deep.
All right, we'll try one more time here with Robbie. You there, Robbie? Robbie. Three strikes and you're out. We have to get in next time.
That's entertaining for sure.
He messaged me and said they got a little party or something going on at the house. So.
Hey, good day.
Anyways, I'm right there with you, Chancey. I always have reservations about predicting an undefeated season just because we're talking about 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old kids. You just don't – it's hard to bring it each and every week. And you're right. Clemson's schedule is going to get dissed on every year just because of the league they play in. But it is a little bit more difficult this year than it has been in years past. I think Miami is going to be solid. I think North Carolina State's a 10-win team, and it's never easy going and playing in South Bend, especially when they got 3 Heisman contenders on the team.
Yeah.
Great day.
And the National Coach of the Year.
I love Marcus Freeman, but let's pump the brakes a little bit there.
Yeah. I agree.
Anyways, I think Clemson wins the division, though, probably with a loss somewhere along the way. I don't think they're going to lose in North Carolina State. I think that game's circled on the calendar. It's been a long time since they've come in here and beaten Clemson. It's been never since Dave Dorn's won in Death Valley. I just think that's a game. Like I said, that's a game that's circled on the calendar. Clemson drops one. To me, the best chances are there in South Bend, and I would not discount Miami at all, man, because like Chancey touched on, they've got a quarterback that can play. I mean, he was really playing well over, the back half of last season. So, and I'm a big fan of Mario Cristobal. Although he's going to have to show me that the U is back before I start getting out there saying it. We've heard it time and again, but I do think that's a solid football team. They've got talent, and I think they've got a pretty dang good coach now. Definitely a notch above what they've had. So that's a game I wouldn't overlook either, any question. But I do think Clemson wins the division. I think they get back get back to Charlotte. Likely win the ACC, and the question is, do they win the ACC with 1 loss or 2 losses? I think they do it with 1 loss and get back into the playoff. But long time between now and December. We'll see how it plays out.
Agreed.
All right. If y'all want to, see. I saw a few. Oh, here you go. It's not showing me who's asking the question, so I'm just gonna put it up. Freddie, who's your breakout receiver for this year?
I'm thinking, to me, I'm expecting Dakari Collins to pick up where he left off last year, and probably have a breakout season.
Kelly.
I actually think it's going to be one of those freshmen. I know that's difficult to do on a Clemson squad for a freshman receiver, but I think Adam Randall, or the other name escapes me now.
Antonio Williams.
There you go. Both of them look the part physically, and I think they can come in and have an impact.
How about you, John?
Well, I like Freddie's answer. I think Dakari, he's one of my favorites for sure. I'll throw a wild card out there, and I'll say I'll go a little loose with the term receiver, and I'll say Browningstool. I think that maybe, I really like the tight end that's been starting. His name's Davis. It was starting for us last year. I really like him too, but Browningstool, he just seems like he's just a feeling I get. He's gonna get some looks this year, and I think, especially if we are doing a run-based type, offense, the tight end often, can become a target that can sneak through and get open.
Hey, I'm with you on Browningstool. I think he's going to have a big impact on the offense. But if we just talking strictly receivers, I'm going Will Taylor. I think Will Taylor is going to have a tremendous impact on the offense this season. Clemson really suffered for not having a smaller, twitchier speed guy in the offense. I mean, on the outside as a receiver last year, as a pass catcher, let's put it that way. And I think Will Taylor can be that guy. I don't know if he's your starting guy in the slot. I don't know. We'll have to see how all that plays out. But I think Will Taylor is going to have a monster kind of, let's say it like this. I think he's going to have a major impact on the offense. This kid's a baller. He everybody I talk to says think Hunter Renfro, but faster. You know, he's got that kind of work ethic. He's that detail oriented, and he is, from everything I've been told, he is already a heck of a route runner. And he's not been playing receiver that long, and he's the kind of guy that Clemson needs in this offense. So that's who I'm going with, Will Taylor. And we already had a comment earlier, Chancey, somebody saying something about like to see the tight ends be used. You hit right on Brennan's stool there.
Yeah,
Kelly, I was with you there, Kelly, until he got hurt. When Adam got hurt, I'm waiting to see how he comes back from that. And Antonio Williams coming in late, I'm wondering how that's going to affect him.
Yeah,
but I would agree with you 100%.
Williams I'm as high on Williams as I am anybody in that receiving room. I have been for a long time. He's going to have a lot to learn, though, in a short amount of time, and he's got guys ahead of him on the depth chart. We'll see how it shakes out, but whether it's this year or next year, I think he is going to have a big-time impact on the offense going forward. I don't know how much this year. We'll see. If any freshman is going to do it, it'll be him, because I don't think Randall will be back before the halfway point. Man, if he was healthy, though, I'm telling you, I can't remember the last time I saw a freshman as impressive just from a physical standpoint as Adam Randall is. I mean, I literally had to do a double take when I walked past him the first time, man. And I had just watched him play in November, and this was during spring practice. He looked like a completely different guy. I mean, it was unreal. But I'm looking forward to seeing both of those guys, no doubt about it. Somebody's asking about Keldrick Falk. As of earlier today, I don't really have anything new on Keldrick Falk. You know, he announces tomorrow. They have done a fantastic job of keeping this thing, bottled up. Little to no information is getting out on this thing. I don't even think any crystal balls have been put in for him. I can't find anything out about him, anything of, substance. I'm not even sure the coaching staffs have been informed as of earlier today. I do think it's coming down to Clemson and Florida State, and I do think Clemson's got a better shot than I thought they had 2 weeks ago. I'm saying that's where he'll land. I just think they got a better – I think they're in it more than I thought they were a couple weeks ago. But that's just one we might just have to wait and see on, because they have done – just like Peter Woods and that camp's done, they have done a remarkable job about controlling the information that gets out of there. There's not been any leaks, that kind of stuff. So we'll see.
That's so rare nowadays.
Yeah,
so rare.
I was thinking that too, Kelly.
Yeah, it don't happen a lot, especially with the internet these days.
Yeah,
I don't think. Go ahead, Chance.
I was going to say I don't know much about beyond what you say about where he's going to go. I've watched some of his film, and he hands down he's not a one-trick pony, but there's no doubt what his specialty is. It's rushing the quarterback, coming off that edge. Sometimes he gets down a three-point stance, and sometimes he's standing. He reminds me a lot of Brian Burns. Yeah. And I'm trying not to let that get in my head too much, thinking he's going to be a Seminole, but the honest truth is he looks like he reminds me so much of Brian Burns coming off that edge, and but he would be a great addition for this defense, especially if they want to go multiple.
Oh man, he's going to be a stud wherever he ends up. I totally agree with that. His film is impressive. Like you said, he knows how to get after the quarterback. All right, I think that we've been rolling on about 50 minutes. How about that?
Hey, I've had fun.
Yeah, not too bad for your first roundtable.
Yeah.
Hey, it wasn't all bad. It wasn't the disaster I thought it might be.
No, I thoroughly enjoyed it, fellas. Anytime we get together, talk Clemson with some like-minded folks, it's always a good time.
We had upwards of 20 or so people watching at the time there. That's pretty good in my opinion, So appreciate you all you guys tuning in. We'll try to do this again, not too far off down the line, and maybe we can get Robbie in the next time when he's not having a party at his house. And we'll get the beef in next time when it's not a holiday.
There you go.
Sir.
I appreciate all you guys jumping in, man. This was fun. We'll see y'all later.
All right,
Thank you very
JP.
much.